Ready? Okay. I'm with Muhib here in the studio, kicking off episode 10. And here we are, the Telos Show, talking about purpose, Christian purpose, related to our lives in all different aspects. Tonight's topic has to do with finances. Neither of us are self-acclaimed finance gurus in any way, shape, or form, but we're just talking about it from a Christian perspective, what we think about how we should live our lives financially.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
So if you, this is to the listeners, if you're trying to make financial decisions, like this is not the show,
Right.
Disclaimer. Disclaimer. We need to kind of cover ourselves.
That's a very good point, Muhib.
But we have something from the Spirit of God. We have something to say. We're not Dave Ramsey's. We're not.
Well, just our own perspective, right?
Right. Yeah, an own perspective from the Bible and.
Yeah, we're going to converse about that. So there's some differing perspectives and opinions. We also, this kind of started off. This was a little in-house conversation we were having, right?
Yeah.
And it was a little bit about the life of Jesus. What was Jesus' financial situation?
Yeah, we had a little debate. Maybe I don't know if we're gonna call it debate. It's like a discussion about Christ.
Wait. We were using what was our platform that we were talking?
What the phone?
The video. What's it called? Marco Polo.
Marco Polo. Yeah.
This whole thing was on Marco Polo. By the way.
Yeah. It was like a really fun, healthy discussion about Christ. Was Christ poor, middle class? Christ obviously had a career, he had a job. Mm-hmm. And we were also discussing whether he had a house. There is indications he had, but some people say he doesn't have a house. They use the Bible. So
was he a bum? Was he bumming it? Or was he just living off of a backpack?
I mean, it's seemingly, when he started his ministry, he kind of was walking around, the crowd was follow him. He would travel. So he received support from the women. That's in the gospel,
That's an interesting verse. You told me about that, and I hadn't really.
Yeah. So Christ did receive a gift, but also.
You told me him and the disciples, right, were financially supported by.
The woman,
By these women? A group
by
of
these women. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a principle we should apply today, right?
Well, I don't know if they're going to like that. But,
okay, that's a stretch maybe.
Right.
All right.
I mean, we have people in ministry where...
Did you have the reference for that verse?
I don't recall the exact reference, but it's in the gospel.
You have to look it up. We're giving you some homework.
So...
There's some conflicting or competing views, you could say.
Right.
And one resource from the Gospel Coalition, this is Tom Nelson, and the title of this article is, Should Christians Build Wealth or Avoid It? That's a good way to frame the discussion.
What is your thought? I mean, that's actually is a big. The idea behind the question is really
building
big.
wealth. I mean, I like that. It's like investing, planning financially, thinking ahead.
I think it's totally okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's the short answer. You'd be fine with it.
Why not? I would say it's okay, but there's a longer answer also. Like the motivation behind the idea of building the wealth?
Yes, good question. What's the motivation behind building the wealth?
Right.
Well, we've been doing a little homework, right? Okay, so Barna's got some research on this. What does not Barna have research on, right?
Yeah.
They've researched everything for the last 30 years, and they're awesome. If you don't know them, you should look them up. Barna. Christians' financial motivations matter. So they kind of categorized believers, Christians, into two categories: givers and keepers.
Okay.
And you would be determined either a giver or a keeper depending on how you or lived in according with your goals. Like what were your goals financially? So the givers, the number one category was they were characterized by they wanted to provide for their family. So that would kind of put you in the category of a giver. You're thinking about someone else. Even if it's your own family, you're still thinking about someone else.
You are a giver, okay.
The number one on the keepers category was that they wanted, this is funny, I mean, this is like kind of I guess they're just being honest, but they wanted to support their lifestyle, the lifestyle they wanted.
Okay.
So
That kind of little,
You
know,
met-
we always we need like a balance message to
yeah,
like the church, a keeper and a giver. I like the idea. I just thought about God. God is both.
hmm
He's a keeper. He keeps, but he also gives.
hmm
You know, um, what about Christ?
Yeah.
I think Christ also both. He received the help, but also was a giver also in different. Remember when he went to the temple, he wanted to give the gift according to the law. He's not frugal. He wants to give. He wants to kind of like, I have I live in this dimension, and in this dimension, I'm supposed to pay taxes. And he was questioned about that. He said, "All right, let's do it." So
Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's.
yeah,
Yeah.
But is God? Is God? I love to start with God. Like God in His character.
Right. Who is God, and that should give us an indicator of how we should live our lives.
Yeah, because people hijack also God's character to advance their ideas about wealth and poverty. Because we have here in our notes poverty gospel, prosperity gospel. You want to start there, or you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
For sure. So the poverty gospel, and this is going back to the article from Tom Nelson.
Okay.
There's an underlying Gnosticism that devalues the true goodness of the material world. And
Okay.
that's something like, I want to be spiritual, so I'm not really focused on this world. It's earthly, sensual, and devilish. They'll use Bible language
Okay.
and verses. They'll throw verses about it. But it's just an unhealthy view of the life God has called us to. And it doesn't fall in line with the creation mandate.
Yeah, this is a good point.
Okay.
The beginning, Genesis, God basically, we can say it this way, God gave Adam Eden. There's a lot of wealth in
A
there.
garden, right?
Stewardship, that's the word.
That is the word. Yeah, exactly.
Stewardship. It's a big word.
So the poverty gospel is like, I've just got to get rid of everything.
Uh-huh.
I have to kind of pull myself out of this world system entirely.
Yeah.
All I just need is some clothes to cover my body and some bread to fill my stomach, and that's it.
Okay, that's a misconception. We can address
Yeah,
that.
exactly. We can talk about that.
Okay.
And then there's the prosperity gospel.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And by the way, to be fair, there are some strengths to these.
Uh-huh.
We're going to kind of look at them as just a bad perspective, but
Yeah.
a strength for the poverty gospel is that it's challenging our value system as modern Westerners.
Right.
There's like definitely materialism.
And there is, the theological angle, also the cross. At the cross, you kind
Right.
of leave things.
Mm-hmm.
You like
We're to surrender.
surrender, the idea of surrendering, the idea of me being wealthy, maybe, for some people, it could be like that like
It
there's
could
a
be.
challenge can happen also. So go
Yeah.
ahead, yeah.
So that's the good thing is like, yeah, maybe we do need to be challenged. Our Western modern value system brings with it materialism.
Yeah.
And there's like goods, and we're just become consumers.
Right.
So it's addressing an issue, a legitimate issue. And then there's the prosperity gospel, which doesn't take into account human suffering.
Yeah.
It just seems to totally dismiss the fact that we live in a fallen world, and good Christians all over the world are not going to get a dime into their savings account because they don't even have a bank account, perhaps. And what are they? Are they not good Christians because they can't
Right.
save and financially prepare for their future and their children?
Yeah, as if there's this idea of convenient. Like as a believer, I can look for, it can be really wrong. Like prosperity gospel, I think about convenient right away when I hear prosperity gospel.
Well, they think blessing is some sort of I'm gonna get rich, I'm gonna be prosperous, I'm gonna have the nice car, I'm gonna get the new suit, I'm gonna look sharp on it's all gonna be like it's a very external thing.
Very external, yeah, totally.
And these sort of things mess people up.
Yeah.
I mean, there has to be a balanced perspective here, and
we need the balance. And I remember, like I said it to you earlier on the phone, like we just need the pure gospel,
right?
You know, that's what really where healings takes place, where change takes place. You know, there's so many gospels, but we need to make the case for kind of the pure gospel, where in it we have the balance. Poverty explained, wealth is explained, like within that frame.
Didn't Paul say it so well? Like, I've learned how to,
yeah,
whether I've got it or I don't.
Yeah.
Right?
So there's a possibility
that I'm going to have it.
You, a churchgoer, you might not have it.
And I might not have it.
Yeah. Or maybe you will have it.
Or maybe I'll have it.
Yeah.
But should I seek to attain it? Like, that's the challenge. Like, for a young person, especially like our age, right? Late 20s, early 30s people, like, I want to be a faithful Christian disciple, follower of Christ. What do I do with my money? Or what do I do with... It's not just money. See, money is just a trait. You just get money as a product of your work, right?
Right.
So we're talking about, should I build wealth, though? That's a good way to put it. Like, we're not just talking...
So here's what... Like, as a young pastor, as someone involved in ministry, if someone approached me with that question, I would say, let's start with foundations. You know, like let's talk about motivation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like let's also speak about the age we live in. You know, we're not in the book of Acts where someone is going to sell his house to give you money. You know,
sell his house to give to the church.
To give to the church, and you are part of the church. So we're not in that age where you're going to get that freebie, you know.
There was that, to provide for the financially, those financially in need.
Yes.
That's what so these people with goods were selling, like property.
Yes.
And then that money was getting redirected to the needy.
To the needy, yes.
Okay.
You know? So, like, I'm talking about someone who has this genuine need for the answer. Like, okay, I'm 21 years old. And I wrote it here in my notes. In the U.S., we have so many opportunities. Mm-hmm. There are ways for people to be wealthy, the right way. You know, legally, in the frame, like very legal ways for people to get the opportunity to set themselves.
And arguably easy.
Yes.
Like, if you're just smart, right? The system works.
The system works. There is like the encouragement
to start a business or...
Yeah, so you're being encouraged to actually pursue that thing, you know, becoming rich is very attractive idea.
Yeah, the dream, the American dream.
Yeah, the American dreams. Owning a house, in a few years you pay off the house, you know. You can become wealthy, you know, especially in the U.S., in the Western world. So the church, you know, needs also to teach about wealth. And it's actually is a great idea, you know, to teach.
And you were talking about the foundations.
The foundation. So I think
the young person's like, should I be? It's like maybe you're saying maybe that's not your immediate priority right now.
Yeah, I'll say like let's start with foundation. Let's see.
But what do you mean by that? Foundation?
Like your relationship with God.
Yeah.
You know, why the idea of becoming wealthy is arising in your heart. Motivation. Tell me about it.
You know what we say, like in our ministry, like we say, get to know God and he'll tell you what to do with your life. Right? Okay. Like we're very hands off, I think, with directing people or telling people what to do.
Right.
Right? I mean, there's financial strategies for sure. And, and biblical principles even to draw from, or just smart principles to draw from.
Yeah. And another, like after speaking about the foundation, and this is like we are just scratching the surface in a show like this.
Yeah.
Let's approach the mind of God when it comes to wealth. What is the mind of God is saying regarding wealth and poverty? Mm-hmm. You know.
Well, the way our universe works, and this is going to tie. Let me just
go for it. Yeah. There's
the fixed pie fallacy. This is from the article again. the fixed pie fallacy, which basically says like this is the wealth in that's available to mankind, and if you take it, if you get it for yourself, you're taking it from someone else. But that's a fallacy. That's not how this world works. It's actually you are creating wealth, and so there's something now here that wasn't before. So like it's kind of like what agriculture does to a barren field. It makes a field fruitful, and so you've created wealth. You've created something that can, instead of because of the modern technologies in agriculture, I don't have to farm just for my family, a subsistence farmer, but I could actually break into the market and sell for profit.
Right.
The ground that I'm tilling because of the modern technology. So I'm actually creating something and now being able to create it in abundance.
Right.
And so now there's something that wasn't available to a previous generation because of technological and human advancement and human development.
Yeah. They call it like, we're not a financial guru, you said it earlier, producing. If you can produce, you're gaining wealth. The only industry that does not produce and we need it?
What?
Or the only sector that we really need it and they don't, and that sector does not produce at all. Actually, we lose money because of it. Securing the wealth.
Oh.
Security or, securing our lives and our wealth. We need that. This is amazing. And it relates to God,
Well, we've also seen it in like your securing a country or a border, right? There's like a whole lot of money going into that, or like fighting a war.
But
like
the sector
peace is a whole lot cheaper.
The sector in itself does not produce money in return.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's like security guards on a campus. Like they're not really doing anything except protecting you from something that shouldn't be happening.
You're taking from your budget to give it to the guy that guards the wealth or the place or the premise.
Right.
So it's just amazing to think about it,
So if so there's like this universe has like an unlimited potential, and this goes back to the creation mandate, and it can just produce.
Yes.
And people will gain. It's like, and there's a lot of resentment in the United States right now. Socialism is growing. This desire for socialism, and that's because there's resentment against the 1% that own whatever percentage of the wealth in the United States. And then there's the capitalists that are saying, hey, those guys are producing wealth, and there's a trickle-down effect, and actually everyone's benefiting from it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why we say we need the mind of God. Like, we don't want the church to live in a cave. We want financial advisors in the church. We want doctors and police officers and people in the society that we are in it. We are to engage. So
all right, not pull out of this world system, but be engaged in it.
Yes, be engaged in it. So we need what definition? That's a big word. We need like really precise, defined. Like we have to make the case for our people in the church when it comes to wealth. And going back to the 21 years old kid, 18, 19, 20, these people, they are very much exposed to a world system that encourages them to be individual and seek their individuality without God. And one aspect of that individuality is to be rich, to seek wealth and create your empire. So they come to church. They need a precise message when it comes to that point, wealth. That is a big question. Like, should we build wealth?
You know what I loved the motivation for the givers in this Barna report. The motivation that I loved the most, which was 20% of the givers said they want to serve God with their money. I liked that. I was thinking, even if you want to provide for your family, technically that puts you in the category of giver. But that could also be maybe a selfishly motivated thing too. I mean, I suppose any of these could be twisted.
Yeah,
like even serving God, right?
Right.
But I guess I thought the most noble cause, they're all noble, but was the desire to serve God
Yeah.
with your money. Yeah. That should be our number one. Seek first the kingdom,
Yes.
right?
And all
These
shall
things.
be added.
Yeah. But then it also puzzles me. We don't live in a world anymore. I don't know the percentage of the world, but there's an opportunity for wealth creation.
Right.
Like you said, the system works. At least in America, it does. And of course, you could be born in a bad neighborhood,
Right.
or into a rough family, and then you don't have it's not the same opportunity. But,
And that's the other angle. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but suffering in its relation to poverty. Like the church is universal. Like you have maybe 20, let's say 40% of the church lives in the West. Well, let's say 60%. I don't know the percentage wise. So these 60% believers in Christ, they have the
yeah.
opportunity to be wealthy, and kind of there's a comfort in life. They have this comfort in life because even if you're not super rich, but it's still in the West, you have convenience that the other 40%.
You're talking about just the general standard of living, right?
Right. I mean that's part of
You
it too.
can bank on electricity and hot water,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And it's like, yeah.
For some people in the church in India, in the slum of India, that's wealth.
That would be, right.
Yeah. So wealth can take different forms.
Mm-hmm.
It's not how many thousands of dollars you have in your bank account, but also I'm thinking about it in a broader way.
I mean, the average Westerner is living better than any of the wealthiest from 100 years ago, right?
Right.
They didn't
right.
have what we have today.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. There's a need for a selflessness in this, so that you said stewardship, and that's a key word.
Right.
Stewardship here. It's like, this is God's world. We were born into it. That's a grace.
Right.
Or that's the initial, like, God is all grace, right?
Right.
And life itself is a grace. Life itself is a gift.
Right.
And money is a tool within that.
Right.
And so we're stewards of the gifts of
Right.
God and the graces that God has given us all.
Yeah. And like God really has a lot to say about money, rich, poor. These three, like wealth, poverty. There's a lot of scriptures.
Yeah. How about Galatians? We were talking about what was? Oh, 1 Timothy 6.
Yeah, we can go there actually. There are a couple of places in that chapter 6.
Go ahead.
In verse 9, but those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and snare.
Oh yeah, it's not a pretty list there mentioned in 1 Timothy 6.
Right. So
It's quite strong, actually. Here it is. What's the verse?
verse 9, 6,
Yeah.
9.
They'll fall into temptation. It's a trap if the will to be rich, right?
Uh-huh.
If that's their drive,
Right.
like to be rich for some selfish reason.
Right.
Foolish and hurtful lusts, and it will drown you in destruction and perdition.
Right. So we kind of slow it down here because obviously Paul is speaking to Timothy, who's a pastor.
Yeah, that's a good
pastor,
point. Yeah.
And he is Timothy to teach. He has like a teaching office in the church, so he is like going to break down what he received from Paul, the apostle. We really need, like, this is just hermeneutics.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Timothy, you can imagine Timothy breaking down the principles. So we live in the U.S., we live in the West. A level entry career job, 60, 70,000, a possibility. That's good money for a young man, 22, 23. That's good money for that person that lives in the West. He's going to have a lot of convenience because of that salary. So we say to the young man, You're not under any condemnation for making that. You did your schooling, you went to college, you're starting a career, you know. So you don't fall under that 6-9, you know.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because what is hurting the church is the wrong message. You know, I think that's the most hurting things ever can happen in the church.
But the principle, I would say, applies the same to the man of God. Timothy's the man of God.
Right.
Paul's addressing him.
Yes.
That's true of
Yeah.
the passage. But the Proverbs use the same language and speak of,
Right.
if you seek riches, right,
Right.
it will lead to your fall, you know.
Yeah, you could
Like
be anyone.
even the most noble of us, Solomon,
Yes.
right?
It happened to him, yeah. And I think we're sharing Gehazi, the 2 King 5, like he went after the material.
That's not as familiar of a story.
It's
Can
in
you-
2 King 5.
Yeah, yeah.
2 King 5. He's a servant of Elisha, the prophet.
Mm-hmm.
Naaman came. He needed help with an issue.
Right.
Naaman received his help. He got healed. Naaman is offering money to Elisha. Elisha is refusing.
Right.
You know, he had the freedom to accept or refuse. He said, "You don't have to. God healed you. There's this purpose here, actually. You know,
Yeah.
like you're not buying your healing. This is like from God to you through me, the prophet. But the
Gehazi,
servant,
or Gehazi, I have
you know,
to
a
say
guy
his name.
works for the prophet.
Right.
He get tempted. Like, I want the material.
Well, he's like, what is Elijah or Elisha? Which one?
Elisha.
Like, what is he doing? Right. Like,
Yeah, he's like, what is
there's
going on
there's
here?
a buck to be made here.
Right. Like, there's a few $100 here we can make here.
Probably something pretty good, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the temptation I think Paul the Apostle is talking about here.
Yeah.
You know, and this is like a good lesson for us in ministry also.
There's a good. I was just thinking of Abraham when he said, "I don't want a shoe latchet.
Right.
I don't want anything from. I don't need anything from you. Right. What was
Right.
that story?
That's in Genesis.
Yeah.
Was it?
And he went to go rescue Lot. Right.
Yes.
And he
That's the
had he
account.
had success.
And the king of Salem,
Right.
he offered, you know, a gift, but Abraham refused.
Yeah.
You know? So
But
We-
there's a principle there, right? Like
Right.
these men of God, Abraham, and
Elisha.
like, you know,
they're not
depe-
doing
they're
it for
not
the money.
right. Exactly. They're not doing business as usual.
Right. You know, this is a good point because maybe the custom, the culture, you know, it says it's okay for you to take the money.
Mm-hmm.
But God is bringing a new thing. Like, you know, this is like, it's like this shock. Oh, why aren't you following the spirit of the age? Naaman can say to Elisha, what is wrong with you? You're supposed to accept the gift.
Right.
You know, and actually Naaman gave Gehazi what he needed
Right.
because that's the norm.
But didn't the disease go on to Gehazi?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, but
So he got cursed because he was out of line.
yeah,
Especially
but,
since he was speaking in the name of the
prophet.
of the prophet,
Right.
the servant. Yikes.
Yeah. But in the New Testament, and this is where everything is defined. You know, as a minister, it's okay for you to receive the gift because you're working in the ministry.
Yeah, Paul.
So they
Paul,
are-
right. Said that a workman.
Yeah, you are worthy of that gift. You're worthy of that salary.
Yeah.
You know, like, of course, there are people. We can have the discussion about the salary itself. Like, is it
Yeah.
like a private jets and
Uh,
you know the 60? Like, there are pastors, their net worth $60 million. You know, so like our pastor in this ministry, he was speaking about that. Like, he said he doesn't know if that's right or wrong. You know, he kind of like threw the rock in the water. You know, it's like just to stir the water. This is something we can talk about it. You know, like your net worth is this amount of millions.
yeah.
I know. On one hand, okay, it is large, but on the other hand, maybe you sold books. You know, maybe you are successful. You know, we're not to judge of
What's his name? One of these guys. Yeah, successful pastors that did some that did some books.
Right.
And some books just went really well. Rick
Yeah.
Warren. It was Rick Warren.
Okay.
And you know what he did? This was really cool. Because, yeah, pastors that make a lot of money, it's like you said, they're writing books and they're making money off their books. Like, I guess that's what they could do what they want with it.
Right.
Really. It's
Right.
not like they're under any obligation
Yeah.
to sell 60, 50, 70% of their profits from a book.
Right.
So what Rick Warren did, though, was something cool. He paid back his church the entire salary that he had received all those years from his church.
Okay.
So basically, that was one way he gave back. Like, I'm doing fine now, very well for myself,
Right.
as a pastor author.
Yes.
And so one way he did this, and I'm sure people respected him for that.
Yeah.
It was just a small way for him, maybe small way, I don't know. 15, 20 years of his church salary, he just hit from the profit of one book, The Purpose-Driven Life, I think it was.
Yeah.
And he's like, he gave back his salary to his church.
And this is amazing. What he did is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a testimony. It's not a mandate for other successful pastors to do the same exact thing.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah.
You know, it's like the Holy Spirit. This is what I really want to drive home. That's the Holy Spirit is dynamic, living. He moves people to do stuff like that. Rick Warner, you know, like we don't know, like he can move someone else, you know, to do something similar or something even more spectacular. You know, we don't know, but it's like it's not a mandate. That's why in the New Testament we have really clear definitions. You can accept the gift or you can refuse it, and we have examples for both. The apostles, like Paul, did both actually. He had a job, he had a career, but at some point he also accepted gift.
I really think, like you're saying, the Holy Spirit speaks to us. The New Testament speaks to us. Like, I really think we should really focus on what is God calling me to do, and just do that with all of our might.
Right.
And that there will be a reward.
Right.
I mean, that's the stewardship principle. Like, just these are the talents you've been given.
Yes.
That's Matthew 25, the parable of the talents. And one was given 5, came back with 10. One was given 2, came back with 4. Right?
Yeah.
And like God said, you know, the Lord said, well done, good and faithful servant.
Right.
And I never realized what he said in contrast to the other is like there's like a parallel here. Like a total opposite. He said, you wicked and slothful servant.
Right.
To the
slothful. That's a good word.
Like, ouch. Like, basically, and then it even said unprofitable in a follow-up verse.
Okay.
Like, really drove the point home. Like, what were you doing with your life?
Right. And also,
and that's like the heart of it for me. Like the building wealth thing, it's like it's just evidence of a person that was busy serving God.
Right.
And there's a wealth build, whether it's material or immaterial.
Yeah, it can happen, yeah.
If it's in the life of the people that they're ministering to,
yes.
Like a Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
A Mother Teresa, I would say, is building wealth. Maybe not in the way that we're primarily talking about tonight, but like building wealth in the kingdom of God.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. And Paul in 1 Timothy 6, he speaks about that too.
Say it.
Was it verse... I think verse 18.
Yeah.
He's speaking to this category of people like the rich. You know, he's giving warning, an exhortation. Command those who are rich in this present age not to be haughty.
High-minded.
Yeah, it's like, this is a good principle because obviously in the New Testament, we have classifications of people. We have poor and rich, free and slave. Like God is not saying, like He's giving us warning. Like if it's really if it's your sole purpose to be rich, watch out for temptation. He's not telling you not to be rich, or he's just like watch out for temptation.
If the riches come.
Right. That's how I understand these scriptures.
Right.
And if you became rich, don't be haughty.
Yeah.
Because we do have rich people in the New Testament.
Right.
Like even Christ was born, like he was, his tomb, a rich man gave up, like, what was his name?
Mm-hmm.
We gotta get our Bibles right.
Oh, man. That's okay.
So the idea is we have rich people. We have slave owners. We have slave also. We have free people.
Yeah.
So, but verse 18, let them do good, that they may be rich in good works, ready to give, willing to share. It's like that's like advice.
If you're
Do
gonna have riches, put it to good use.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Um.
Be a good steward.
Yeah. I
You
mean, like you said, there's a lot of biblical content to go through.
Right.
We haven't even touched the Proverbs, right?
Yeah.
Or we haven't touched James, right?
Yeah. Book of James,
um,
exhortation for.
and that verse 17 says he gives us richly all things to enjoy. Or in Romans 10, how it says the Lord is rich over all. Like
Right.
we are incredibly rich,
Yeah.
whether we are poor or rich, like in the Lord. Like
In the spiritual
we have an
sense.
inheritance in the Lord.
Yeah.
And that's like our primary source of that's our identity. That's our source of fulfillment. That's our peace.
Right.
You don't look to you don't look to the latest, the hottest
Right.
thing for your peace, joy, satisfaction.
Yeah. And also, this is a point, maybe I haven't brought it in a pre-discussion. In the Bible, there's this sense a richness brings headaches and worrying. The sleep of a laboring man is sweet, but the rich worries. He has his worry. We have that picture in the Bible.
Okay.
Like if you are rich,
Yeah.
you're gonna be worrying about your possessions.
The rich young ruler that came to Jesus was like,
Right.
he couldn't even equate what Jesus was asking of him because there's so much stuff that he
Yeah.
had.
So you worry about it, or you don't want to give it up.
Yeah.
We have these two pictures. I worry, and I don't want to give it up. And
Yeah. So I was thinking of this verse, 1 Samuel chapter 2.
uh-huh,
This is Hannah's song.
uh-huh.
And verse 7 through 8. The Lord makes poor and makes the rich. The
Right.
Lord makes poor and the Lord makes rich, right? Well, Hannah was rejoicing because she had a son, Samuel,
Yeah.
right? And there's women that are barren and there's women that are fruitful,
Right.
right? Women that can have children, women that can't. Those circumstances are out of our control
Yeah.
in many respects,
So
I mean, maybe modern medicine and advances are going to allow us to get a better handle on that, and but there's so much of life circumstances are out of control. You couldn't choose what zip code you were born into,
yeah.
what era, or to what level of educated parents. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And for Hannah, like having a child is a sign of wealth, actually. Like having a child in the Old Testament, we can take it back all the way to Abraham. They needed a son badly. They bring a concubine just for the sake of having a son. Because they didn't have a currency or money. They had the cattle.
They were producing, just making workers.
Yeah, they have things, but during that time, we don't have any recorded. I don't want to go too hysterical in it, but having a son is a sign of wealth. They're gonna inherit my wealth. And Hannah's like, he makes poor, he makes rich. If you give me a son, now I am with the rich.
Well, almost like they would say, my life is in vain. I have no one to give my gainings to, what I've gained, what I've
Right.
worked all my life for.
Yeah.
It's all just going to be given to the state or to my cousin or something,
Yeah,
So for them, it was a big deal that there would be an inheritor.
yeah. But sometimes God takes it away, like in Job, the story of Job.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, the Bible has these radical stories and context and situations.
Right.
And we can, that can bless us because we go through radical
Yeah.
circumstances. And the circumstances it's not one size fits all, the circumstances. And so, yeah, the thing is that some of these things are genuinely out of our control, like our level of education, our level of income. And we're just going to have to get busy with what God's given us.
Yeah, our value system does not come from what we possess, or being poor, being slave or free or rich does not define me. I mean, that's the big idea in the Apostles Paul mind, or in the New Testament writer, the apostles, like you are to be content with your position, like with your situation, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Now we have the complete Bible. We have the moving wisdom of God, where we can tell people. And as I wrote it here, we have opportunities in America, like wisdom of God. You have the opportunity. We're not condemning people. You go for it. But let's just reveal the mind of God to you so you can have the right motivation in your pursuit. You know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess, yeah, young people want to serve God. That's who we're assuming that's the big part of our audience. Like,
Right.
there's young people that want to serve God. That's why they're listening to a Christian podcast,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And they want to and with their time, with their money, with whatever they've got, can be put into God's service.
Yeah.
And if you're building wealth, you can put that into God's service. So
Yeah.
be a good steward of what you've got.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why, I mean, unless you're giving and God's called you to be a giver, an extreme giver. But if you're just, if you're tithing, let's use the tithe for an example. That's a percentage. Well, that percentage will grow if your wealth grows,
Right.
right? So if you make more money, right, then your tithe grows with that. So the building wealth thing is it's gonna add to your ability to serve and minister.
Yeah.
You've got you think like, I want to buy a minivan instead of a sports car. I want to buy that minivan because I could transport people. We can do some local missions work with
Yes.
it,
And-
right?
Yeah, that's totally true.
I'm thinking service to God with my goods, and I'm prioritizing service to God with what investments I make.
Yes. And even those who are less fortunate, let's say they are poor, like they are also included. They can serve God. They still can serve God. Like, it's amazing story in our ministry. Maybe some of the audience, they don't know. One of the poorest countries in Africa, Congo, but it's actually the most busy place for us as far as mission, advancing the gospel,
Really?
work, church planting.
There's-
They're really busy in God's work.
What details do you know about it, or some of the
I
pastors?
don't know the numbers,
You know some of the
but
the
like
missionaries
our
there,
mission
right?
director, Pastor Shabeli, speaks about that.
Oh, really?
Maybe we can have him in the show one day.
Yeah.
Like, it's really a testimony. These people, maybe they make $1 a day. Like, I don't know how much, like, the average income, but they don't have a lot. Like,
Oh, right.
but there is prosperity as far as the advancement of the gospel. Like, it's so rich. Like, you hear the testimonies, the church planting, the work that's been happening.
Well, we're watching the gospel have less and less impact in the West,
Uh-huh.
which is Europe, North America,
Uh-huh.
and more traction in a lot of these third world countries.
Seemingly poor or poor country, we can say that. Yeah.
Under or developing countries, you could say.
So it's like, I think,
Even though I teach a geography class at the school, and we were just looking at the size of the economy, so it was an infographic.
right.
And Africa is a huge continent, but it's got a very small slice of the pie as far as the global economy goes.
Yeah, the contribution.
And that surprised me. I was like, man, on the infographic.
Wow.
But we've got huge missions work going on over there, and
Right.
thriving churches and conferences happening.
This is just, like, I said that to say, this idea of being content, like, we can also push that agenda in the church, in forms of preaching and teaching, like, to be content. Like, being content is also sweet. It's awesome. The money is good. If you are called to have a business, you are in the church, go for it. Like, because we need business people in the church. Like, we need people that make the money. Let's put it this way. But also being content, Like no, I really believe not everybody is called to have a business. Like that's my personal beliefs. Like are we all called to have business and make money? Like maybe not. It's just like a
Are you
question.
contrasting that with being employed, or just
Uh, yeah, maybe let's
business owners
business owners
in the church?
in the church.
They have an amazing purpose because they employ,
Right,
and they might
right.
even employ young people in the church, right?
That can work too. Yeah,
And they can financially contribute to missions,
yeah. But
right? So
right, that's true. But I'm just saying, like there are some people, like Paul the apostle. I think he's addressing these people. They have the temptation. They are getting away, or maybe they don't fully understand the meaning of being content. So they are tempted to seek wealth, because of the convenience that brings. So how do we tackle that? There's two ways. We can be direct, or we can advance being content in preaching and teaching, like to reveal it how awesome it is to be content, and people can get it. Oh, now I see.
direct meaning like telling people what to do.
No, like that. Like in this verse 6:9 is very direct.
Oh, okay.
But there's
Like
also
if you pursue riches, if you're
Yeah,
pursuing riches, this
you're gonna
is
fall
the-
into temptation. That's very direct message.
yeah.
But there's an indirect message,
Indirect, yeah.
yeah, which basically teaching the people about being content.
Right.
Like
And that'll
making that.
affect the ordering of their lives, how
Yeah.
they order their lives.
Yeah. So lack, it's okay to have lack in your life.
Right.
It's like a kind of a
Right.
radical idea.
But the businessman might say, like, but my car is outdated now. I don't know if this looks good for me as a businessman. And you're saying the pastor preaches on Sunday morning, be content. And so now the businessman
now it becomes a matter of obligation.
that's an indirect approach to dealing with the situation.
Like it becomes a matter of obligation also. It can get complicated, but I
Well-
think the Spirit gives the church what the church needs. I know all this,
Yeah.
like scratching the surface. Like I feel like
Yeah.
there's so much to say here.
Yeah, well, with whatever we have, we're to love God and to love our neighbor,
Right.
right? And a great working definition of that, to love, is to will the good of the other.
Yeah.
Bishop Barron uses that definition, good Catholic apologist that I follow. And so I have to love with my money, not hurt,
Right.
not take advantage in business. That's to love with my money is going to affect the way I do business.
Yeah.
Going to affect the way I spend my money. I'm not going to be this consumer that cannot be satisfied, trapped in this materialistic society, like buying the latest. There's a
Yeah.
deal, so I've got to grab it. I've got self-control,
Right.
a fruit of the spirit, right?
Yes. We controlling, like God is revealing to us, giving us wisdom how to spend it. We have it. We are a good steward. I don't know, Andy, if we have enough time to speak about suffering in relation to poverty. It's like it's a big angle here.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of complaints that there's all this wealth, and it's trapped with these few individuals controlling the world's wealth,
Okay.
right? And we would say, yeah, it's true. It's corrupt. It's a product of corruption. It's a product of greed
Right.
and the love of money, which is the root of all evil,
Right.
right?
True.
How would you add to that?
You earlier said that can create suffering to someone else.
Right.
The
Right. Yeah. If we leave people trapped in poverty, and we're in Hollywood's making billions of dollars off of $1 billion off of a single movie, that like the gross income could be of, like of a movie, of a film. We haven't been talking billion
yeah.
in regards to a single movie until just recently. And then it's like, what do we do with that money? Well, it just gets stuffed in people's pockets, and they get to buy an extra house somewhere in the Caribbean or God knows where.
Right.
Right, and another private jet or helicopter. And that's a problem for our world, because that doesn't solve the issues.
Yeah. There is many ways to approach this. Like I guess the way I see it in the Bible, that's the world system.
Yeah.
Like its foundation, establishment, the whole thing, very alien towards God.
Yeah.
You know, like like it has different principles. Like there's a God behind it, Satan.
But I guess this is a little combat argument or a rebuttal, I suppose, to someone saying the world is filled with suffering. Why would I ever believe in God or be interested in Him? And we're saying, like, God, you know, who's to blame? God's saying, you have all this capacity and capability to solve these, fight world hunger, fight diseases, right? Get clean water to poor places, underdeveloped countries. And that would solve a lot of human suffering. But you guys are making billions of dollars in your entertainment industry alone with no concern for what's going on the other side, maybe the other side of the planet.
I think Christianity brings this argument that money does not solve world problem. You know, like it is in the Bible. You know, God bless some Christian groups. You know, they try to use money to bring solutions and convenience to some poor areas in the world. You know, money can't buy something. Money can't buy a medicine to someone who's sick, and they can get.
I guess
well.
I just mean putting wealth to work.
Yes,
I don't mean like just dollars. Of course, dollars doesn't do anything. It's got to be put to.
I like that sentence, putting wealth to work.
Yeah,
but and I know you know this. The Christian argument that the solution is spiritual.
Oh yeah, right.
You know, and the spirit moves my wealth in the right direction. That's how I would like to put it. You know.
Oh, it's a spiritual dilemma for sure. It's a godless dilemma, like you said. It's a world system dilemma.
Yeah.
That it's not just a money dilemma.
Yeah, and
there's definitely something deeper.
The shocking waves that the gospel sends.
Right.
That it's okay to be poor. Suffering is part of this world.
Well, it makes good subjects.
You know, it's like a shocking wave. Like, wait a minute. Like, I'm asking why there is suffering. You're telling me it is part of this world.
Those are verses that the kings of this world want to learn, have in their arsenal. Like, hey, like suffering is good for you.
Like
as they lavish in their wealth, in their riches.
Yeah. So, but there's comfort also for the poor. There's comfort. You know, the poor will always be with you. But the poor is not left alone. Like, he's not left alone in the church. You know, like God is addressing them. There's care. God can call people to help also.
I'm going to wrap this up.
Okay.
To close with something that you started off with was great. You said like the pure gospel, right?
Yes.
Well, here in this article, he says the seamless gospel. You know, the gospel just told in its purest form, the message.
Right.
Not adding an agenda or, you know, anything onto it. Of faith, the gospel of faith tells us that every nook and cranny of our lives matters. The fruitful lives we are called to have, profound economic implications for our world. And I'm interested in this. I like where this writer's going. There's profound economic implications when there's fruitful Christians going on.
Right.
As apprentices of Jesus, the mandate to bear much fruit in every dimension of our lives is at the heart of faithful Christian discipleship. Basically, where Christians go, fruitful Christians, disciples, right? Gospel-centered Christians, where gospel-centered Christians go, the city or the country or the world prospers. There's prosperity.
Yes.
There's the prosperity gospel.
There's this healthy spiritual prosperity,
right,
where there's integrity and honesty, not greed anymore.
Yeah, right. Like, thank God in America that there's integrity and honesty, right?
Right.
Those are Christian virtues. We could argue for that.
Yeah.
If this was a survival of the fittest worldview undergirding America, then there wouldn't. Why would there be honesty and virtue? You know,
like even this idea of 7-year credits. You know, like this the wiping away your debts, and it's all in the Old Testament. You know, like
really, yeah, that's an interesting point.
You know, you can file a bankruptcy, and everything is wiped away. Like it's like there's grace here, and like
there's
our established laws.
The credit card companies even use that word.
Right.
There's grace.
Grace
they have
period.
the grace period.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's Christianity in our economy all over the place.
Yeah,
and
but
we should be aware of that.
I mean, we can do a better job in like more explaining and teaching and revealing that actually.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that now it's for them to decide, to figure out, and to talk
Yeah.
and argue. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can get some feedback from them as well, what they thought of what we had to say today.
Yeah, feel free to give feedback and let us know. I mean, there's so much to say, but I guess we
That's a wrap.
gonna end here.
All right. Thank you. See you next time.
Thank you.